The universe has a peculiar sense of balance. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. For every withdrawal of energy, there is a desperate attempt to reclaim it. You have reached that pivotal moment, the cosmic shift, where you stop caring, stop chasing, stop feeding the machine of their dysfunction with your endless emotional labor. This is when they reveal their final card. Not out of love, mind you, but out of pure mathematical necessity. They have calculated their position and found it insufficient. The power dynamic that sustained them for so long has shifted, and like any organism facing extinction, they will deploy their most sophisticated survival mechanisms. What you are about to witness is not genuine change. It is not the awakening of their dormant capacity for love. It is the last desperate gambit of someone who has suddenly realized that their most reliable source of validation has gone offline. The person who treated your emotional needs like irritating background noise will suddenly become the most attentive partner you've ever seen. This transformation is as predictable as the laws of physics and twice as cold. They are not rediscovering their love for you, they are discovering the discomfort of losing control. The avoidant who couldn't be bothered to maintain basic relationship functions will suddenly develop the work ethic of a cosmic force when they sense their grip loosening. This will hurt because it will look exactly like everything you ever wanted from them. The timing will seem like cruel irony. The intensity will feel like vindication. But understand this: you are not witnessing their evolution. You are witnessing their most calculated manipulation yet. They are about to show you exactly how capable of effort they always were, and exactly how little you mattered when they felt secure in your devotion. Prepare yourself. The final trick is always the most convincing. Chapter 1. The Phantom Return. They operated under the comfortable assumption that you were a constant, like gravity or oxygen, something they could rely on without maintenance or acknowledgement. Your presence required no effort because it simply existed, as reliable as the rotation of planets. They calculated your devotion as a fixed variable in their emotional equation, but constants, when removed, create vacuums, and vacuums demand to be filled. Watch how efficiently they mobilize when threatened with actual consequences. The person who claimed to not be good with words suddenly becomes eloquent about their feelings. The individual who insisted they needed space now wants to spend every moment rebuilding what they systematically destroyed through neglect. Their sudden transformation is mathematically perfect. They mirror exactly what you needed from them at precisely the moment you no longer need it. They become attentive when your attention has shifted elsewhere. They offer vulnerability when you've stopped requesting it. They promise presence when you've learned to value your solitude. This is not growth, it is adaptation. Like a virus mutating to survive in a hostile environment, they are reconfiguring their approach to maintain their position in your life. The avoidant who couldn't invest basic emotional effort when you were devoted suddenly possesses unlimited resources for relationship repair when you are detached. The cruelest aspect of this phenomenon is its effectiveness. They know exactly which buttons to press because they observed you pressing them repeatedly during your period of emotional starvation. They have studied your needs like a scientist studying lab results, cataloging every request you made, every tear you shed, every accommodation you offered. Now they deploy this intelligence with surgical precision. Every gesture calculated to reactivate your dormant hope. Every word designed to resurrect your buried belief in their capacity for change. But ask yourself this simple question: if they possessed these capabilities all along, why did it require the threat of your departure to activate them? The answer reveals the true nature of their sudden transformation. You are not witnessing their awakening. You are witnessing their panic. Chapter 2. The Vulnerability Weapon. Here they come, armed with their most devastating ammunition: feelings. Real, raw, carefully curated feelings, designed to stop you dead in your tracks. The person who spent months treating your emotions like an inconvenience suddenly has a PhD in emotional intelligence. They sit you down with the gravity of someone delivering a death sentence. Their voice cracks, perfectly, authentically, as they begin to unveil the tragic backstory they've been hoarding like a secret treasure. I never told you this, but when I was 7, and off they go, painting you a masterpiece of childhood wounds and buried pain. Listen carefully to the timing of these revelations. Where was this vulnerability when you were begging for scraps of emotional connection? Where were these profound insights when you were slowly dying from their emotional starvation? They had these feelings locked away in a vault, only to be opened in case of emergency. And your potential departure? That's their definition of emergency. They'll tell you about their fear of abandonment, the same fear that drove them to abandon you emotionally for months. They'll explain their trust issues, the same issues that led them to withhold trust from you completely. They'll describe their terror of intimacy, while sitting there being more intimate than they've ever been in your entire relationship. The mathematics are breathtaking. They've calculated exactly how much vulnerability will reel you back in. Not too little. You might keep walking, not too much. They might actually have to sustain this level of openness beyond the crisis, just enough to make you believe you're finally seeing the real them. But here's what they're not telling you. This isn't the real them emerging. This is a performance designed by someone who finally understands what you needed and is willing to temporarily provide it to maintain their position. They're not sharing these feelings because they want to connect. They're sharing them because they want to control. Watch how quickly this newfound emotional availability evaporates once they feel secure in your renewed attention. The person who just spent 3 hours tearfully explaining their deepest fears will return to their fortress of emotional unavailability within days of your forgiveness. They've learned that vulnerability is a tool, not a way of being. They've discovered that opening up can be just as manipulative as shutting down, perhaps more so because it targets your hope instead of your frustration. The cruelest part isn't that they're manipulating you with fake emotions. The cruelest part is that these emotions might be real. They just chose to weaponize their own authentic feelings rather than share them as an actual bid for connection. They're not showing you their heart because they trust you with it. They're showing you their heart because they've calculated that it's the most effective way to recapture your attention. The vulnerability weapon works because it gives you exactly what you always wanted. Proof that there's something deeper beneath their surface. But timing, as they say, is everything. Chapter 3. The Promise Parade. Now comes the symphony of future commitments, each one perfectly orchestrated to target your specific wounds. They've kept detailed mental notes of every complaint you've made, every need you've expressed, every tear you've shed over their emotional absence. Now they're going to address each one with the precision of a skilled marksman. I'm going to start therapy, they announce, as if the thought just occurred to them rather than something you suggested 17 times over the past year. I want to work on my communication, they declare, conveniently forgetting the countless conversations where you begged them to simply talk to you like a human being. Listen to the specificity of their promises. They don't just say they'll change. They provide detailed blueprints for transformation that sound like they were copy-pasted from relationship advice columns. They'll schedule weekly check-ins. They'll practice active listening. They'll be more present, more available, more everything you ever asked them to be. The timing of their sudden self-awareness is almost insulting. Where was this insight when you were slowly suffocating in the relationship? Where was this motivation when you were begging for basic emotional maintenance? They had access to all these solutions while you were drowning, but chose to deploy them only when their own comfort was threatened. They'll create timelines for improvement that sound like project management presentations. In 30 days, you'll see a difference. In 60 days, I'll have established new patterns. In 90 days, we'll be stronger than ever. They've turned relationship repair into a business proposal, complete with milestones and deliverables. But notice what they're not promising. They're not promising to feel differently about intimacy. They're not promising to actually want the closeness they're offering to provide. They're promising to perform the behaviors of an emotionally available partner while their fundamental relationship with vulnerability remains unchanged. This is behavior modification, not transformation. They're agreeing to act like someone who values connection while remaining someone who fears it. They're offering to play the role of a present partner while staying fundamentally absent from their own emotional experience. The promises feel so comprehensive, so thoughtful, so perfectly tailored to your needs that you almost forget the central question. If they were capable of this level of insight and commitment all along, why did it take the threat of losing you to activate it? They're not promising to become a different person. They're promising to become a better actor. The script has changed, but the actor remains the same. Someone who views relationship maintenance as a performance rather than a genuine expression of care. Every promise they make is a confession of their previous choices. Every commitment to change is an admission that they were capable of effort all along, but chose not to provide it when your devotion was guaranteed. The parade of promises isn't evidence of their growth. It's evidence of their calculations. Chapter 4. The Punishment Protocol. When charm fails and promises fall flat, they activate their nuclear option, strategic punishment disguised as wounded pride. The person who couldn't be bothered to respond to your texts for days suddenly becomes a master of psychological warfare, wielding silence like a precision instrument. This isn't the same casual neglect you endured during the relationship. This is weaponized absence, calculated to maximum effect. They disappear with the precision of a military operation, not because they're busy or distracted, but because they've determined that your withdrawal requires their counter-withdrawal. Watch how surgical their punishment becomes. They'll be active on social media while ignoring your messages. They'll respond to mutual friends while leaving you in digital silence. They'll be available to everyone except you, creating a visible display of their capacity for communication that you're suddenly excluded from receiving. The message is clear. You wanted space from their dysfunction, so now you'll get space from everything about them. You complained about their emotional unavailability, so now you'll experience their complete unavailability. It's punishment designed to make you nostalgic for their previous level of neglect. They operate on the assumption that you've forgotten how good you had it when they were merely emotionally absent instead of completely absent. They're betting that total silence will make their previous pattern of minimal engagement seem generous by comparison. This is where their fundamental misunderstanding of human psychology becomes obvious. They believe that escalating their withholding will make you appreciate their previous level of breadcrumbs. They think that removing themselves entirely will make you grateful for whatever scraps of attention they were willing to provide before. But here's what they fail to calculate. Punishment only works on people who still want something from the punisher. Their strategic silence is devastating only if you're still invested in receiving their communication. Their orchestrated absence only hurts if you're still hoping for their presence. The punishment protocol reveals their most primitive understanding of relationship dynamics. They view connection as a commodity they control, attention as a resource they ration, and your emotional well-being as leverage they can manipulate. In their minds, they're not being cruel, they're being strategic. They'll maintain this silence until one of two things happens. Either you break and come crawling back with renewed appreciation for their minimal efforts, or they realize that their absence has become a gift rather than a punishment. The cruelest irony is that their punishment often provides exactly what you needed all along: freedom from their emotional manipulation. Their strategic withdrawal becomes your unexpected liberation. Their calculated absence becomes your peace. They designed their silence to torture you, but instead they've accidentally given you space to remember what it feels like to exist without constantly managing their dysfunction. The punishment protocol fails because it's based on the assumption that you still want what they're withholding. When that assumption proves false, their most devastating weapon becomes powerless. Chapter 5. The Replacement Threat. When all else fails, they deploy their ultimate psychological weapon, the strategic demonstration that others value what you foolishly discarded. Suddenly, the person who had no energy for social connection becomes the life of every party. The individual who claimed to be too busy for relationship maintenance now has unlimited availability for new acquaintances. Watch the precision of this campaign. They don't just move on, they move on publicly, visibly, in ways designed to reach your awareness. Their social media transforms from a barren wasteland into a highlight reel of engagement and connection. The person who couldn't manage dinner conversations with you is now photographed at brunches, parties, social gatherings you weren't invited to attend. This isn't authentic social expansion. This is theater designed for an audience of one: you. They've calculated that watching them effortlessly connect with others will trigger your competitive instincts, your fear of being replaced, your doubt about whether you made the right choice in withdrawing your energy. They're betting that seeing them laugh with others will make you forget why you stopped laughing with them. Notice how their sudden social butterfly transformation mirrors everything you asked for during the relationship. The person who claimed to hate social events now attends them regularly. The individual who insisted they weren't good with people now seems to charm everyone they encounter. They've become the socially engaged partner you always wanted, for everyone except you. They'll strategically mention new friends, new interests, new activities that make their life sound fuller and more exciting than it ever was when you were in it. They want you to believe that your departure didn't create a void, it created space for upgrade. They want you to imagine that removing yourself from their life was like removing a weight that was holding them back from their true social potential. The replacement threat operates on multiple levels of manipulation. On the surface, it suggests that they're moving on successfully, that your concerns about their emotional availability were unfounded, that they're perfectly capable of connection when they're with the right person. Deeper down, it implies that you were the problem, the drain on their social energy, the obstacle to their natural charisma. But here's what their performance reveals. If they were capable of this level of social engagement all along, why did they ration it so severely when you were together? If they possess this natural ability to connect, laugh, and engage, why did you spend months feeling like you were extracting blood from stone just to get basic conversation? The replacement threat is actually a confession. Every new connection they display is evidence of capacity they withheld from you. Every laugh they share with others is proof of joy they refuse to share with you. Every moment of engagement they offer to strangers is a reminder of the engagement they denied you when you were devoted to them. They're not demonstrating that they're better without you. They're demonstrating that they chose to be worse with you. They're not proving that others appreciate them more. They're proving that they deliberately gave you less than they were capable of giving. The most pathetic aspect of the replacement threat is its transparency. They're working so hard to appear unaffected by your absence that they've revealed exactly how affected they actually are. Truly moving on doesn't require a performance. Genuine healing doesn't need an audience. Their sudden social expansion isn't evidence of their resilience. It's evidence of their desperation to convince you and themselves that losing you was actually a victory. The replacement threat only works if you forget that quantity of connections doesn't equal quality of connection, and that being popular doesn't mean being capable of genuine intimacy. Chapter 6. The Inevitable Truth. Here is the mathematical certainty that governs all their desperate maneuvers. They are not fighting for love. They are fighting to maintain their position of power. Every tactic they deploy, every emotion they weaponize, every promise they craft is designed to restore the equilibrium that favored them, where you provided maximum emotional labor for minimum emotional return. The avoidant doesn't miss you. They miss the version of you that accepted their dysfunction as unchangeable reality. They don't want you back. They want the emotional supply chain restored. They don't love you more now that you're gone. They simply understand for the first time what you were providing and are panicking at the loss of those services. This is why their transformation appears so sudden and comprehensive. They're not gradually growing into emotional availability. They're temporarily performing it to recapture their most reliable source of validation. Their change isn't developmental, it's tactical. The inevitability of their pattern becomes clear once you understand their core programming. They view relationships as resource management systems, not emotional partnerships. You were never their partner. You were their emotional infrastructure, maintaining the stability of their world while they remained free to focus on everything except reciprocating your investment. When that infrastructure threatens to collapse, they don't rebuild from a place of love. They rebuild from a place of necessity. Their sudden effort isn't motivated by recognition of your value. It's motivated by recognition of their dependence on your labor. This is why their tactics work on most people. The human heart wants to believe that emotional neglect stems from inability rather than choice, that withdrawal comes from wounding rather than selfishness, that their sudden availability represents growth rather than strategy. But the timeline tells the truth. Change that emerges only under threat of consequence isn't change, it's crisis management. Effort that materializes only when comfortable arrangements are disrupted isn't effort, it's damage control. They will return to their default programming the moment they feel secure in your renewed attachment. The person who promises transformation will revert to their original settings once the emergency passes. The individual who suddenly develops emotional intelligence will mysteriously lose those capabilities once the threat to their position subsides. This isn't cruelty. This isn't evil. This is simply the predictable behavior of someone who has never learned to value what they possess until they risk losing it. The inevitable truth is that they are showing you exactly who they've always been, someone who can access their full capacity only when their comfort is threatened. Chapter 7. Your perfect response. The only strategy that neutralizes cosmic-level manipulation is absolute indifference. Not anger. Anger reveals that you're still engaged in their game. Not sadness. Sadness shows that their tactics are affecting you. Not even satisfaction at their desperation. Satisfaction indicates you're still measuring your worth by their attention. Indifference. Complete mathematical indifference. When they materialize with newfound availability, you observe without attachment. When they deploy vulnerability as a weapon, you remain unmoved by the performance. When they parade their promises, you listen without hope or expectation. When they activate punishment protocols, you experience their absence as relief rather than loss. When they threaten replacement, you wish them well in their pursuits. This isn't cruelty. This is the natural response of someone who has transcended the need for their validation. You have evolved beyond the reach of their emotional mathematics. Their calculations no longer compute because you've removed yourself from their equation entirely. The perfect response requires no explanation, no justification, no counter-manipulation. You simply exist in a space where their approval is irrelevant, their attention is unnecessary, and their drama is someone else's problem to solve. They will escalate their tactics when met with genuine indifference. They will cycle through every weapon in their arsenal, increasing intensity and desperation with each failed attempt to provoke a response. Let them exhaust themselves against the wall of your disinterest. You are no longer available for their emotional experiments. You are no longer willing to participate in the push-pull dynamic that once defined your connection. You have discovered something more valuable than their inconsistent attention, your own peace. The cosmic balance has shifted permanently. They are no longer the center of your universe. You are. This is how you defeat someone who views relationships as power games. You stop playing entirely. Indifference is inevitable. Resistance is futile.